Greetings all, my name is JD from Studio 2105. Welcome to Direct Access MixStream and a brand new episode of Weekly Update Wednesdays. If you produce and record music at home, you will sometimes want to send it out to a mixing engineer. In this week's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a list of guidelines on what to prepare before sending your files out. As usual, if you're new to this channel, a warm welcome to you. A big shout out to all the patrons who help to support the channel financially. Do sign up for the email list. If you're not yet a subscriber, click on the subscribe button. Don't forget to click on the notification bell. And if you want to become a patron, head on down to the website down below, www.patreon.com/studio2105. I wrote and recorded a song at home and I'm planning to send it to a mixing engineer. What should I pay attention to before sending the tracks over? This is a great question and one that I've gotten many times over the years, especially from those who are recording at home. I'm going to share a list of guidelines that I send out to all my new mixing clients. Hopefully you will find this useful. The main reason for these guidelines is so that all communication and the work processes that take place are as streamlined and efficient as possible. A lot of the items on the list are to avoid confusion, technical mistakes and errors, and very importantly, to avoid any miscommunication that might take place between myself and the client. I always tell my engineers and my interns that the golden rule applies. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The best thing that you can do when sending files to someone else is to put yourself in their shoes. If you're receiving files from someone, you will want to be able to tell at a glance what those files are, what the parts are, what it's all about, without having to investigate further, without having to pick up a phone call to ask, right, or to drop a message to find out, what a particular track is all about. The simple act of labeling tracks correctly with a clear description goes a long way in making the mixer's job easier. Trust me, your mixer will love you for that. An incorrectly named vocal file might end up in the mix as a background part, whereas the client, right, or the artist might have intended it to be a main part in the first place. The wrong sample rate indicated might result in the mix playing back at the wrong speed and at the wrong pitch. At the very least, it will be an embarrassing story to tell, but in the worst case scenario, this might be a costly misadventure, right? Okay, when a top flight mixer either rejects your project outright or, charges you extra for having to fix and to deal with all the problems that might have been encountered. Take note that these are just guidelines and they are not rules and regulations that have to be followed to the T, okay? Now, there are some areas where there may be exceptions and I'll mention it when we get there. Here's a list of 13 guidelines when submitting files for mixing. Number 1, all tracks to be properly named. As I mentioned, right, you need to give them clear names with proper descriptions. No Vox 01, Vox 02. Don't give them like Audio 1, Audio 2, Drum 1, Drum 2, right? Have a clear description, have it properly named. Number 2, create separate folders for each category of tracks. For example, drums, you have bass, you have maybe keys, you have guitars and vocals, etc. Again, this is not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes it's okay to put everything into one single folder, but separating it into different folders will make the job easier. Number 3, mono tracks should be exported or bounced as mono, not stereo or dual mono. Having said that, there are some DAWs and VST instruments that are unable to export mono files. That's alright, your mixer should be able to handle. Number 4, all tracks to be exported and bounced from the start of the project, usually bar 1. Okay, this is totally self-explanatory. This is to make sure that all the tracks are in sync in the project. Number 5, remove any muted tracks and unused parts. Number 6, all your edits or comp tracks should be properly crossfaded or faded in or faded out. It's your job, all right? Whoever has done the recording, all right, before you send and you present these files over to the mixing engineer, to make sure, right, all the edits have been done properly. You don't want to have any hard edits which can result, right, in digital clicks and digital pops, because again, this is going to take time, right? If the mixer has to go through all of these things and to check for all these errors, it's going to be a very, very time consuming process. Do your mixer a favor, make sure that all your edits are done properly, all your fade-ins and fade-outs are done properly as well, right? Wherever all you have like clips which are overlapping each other, make sure that these are all cross-faded nicely. Number 7, vocals tuned and comped if needed. Similar to the previous point, all right, by right, when you're sending it to the mixing engineer, right, it's not their job to be, pitch correcting your vocals or to tune your vocals again. Usually, if you're going to ask your mix engineer to do that, there's usually an extra charge. Number 8, for parts with specific effects or plugins that cannot be easily recreated, bounce and export the tracks with those effects and those plugins in place. Now, you can always, as an option, give them a dry version, bypass those effects and those plugins and export another one. But when there's a very, very specific effect, a specific sound, maybe a filter or a type of reverb or a type of a margin effect that you're going for, kind of no point in trying to reinvent things and to recreate them. So commit to the sound, just export it, bounce it out with those effects and plugins in place. Number 9, remove all other processing, the EQ, compressor limiter, effects, etc. Now, once again, same point, if there is a very, very specific effect that is being achieved by, some of the processing that's being applied, you can always leave them in. But generally, as a rule of thumb, it's best to remove all these plugins and effects and processing, because it will give the mixer the maximum flexibility to work on it. Number 10, remove all automation. Sometimes during the production and the recording process, you may have written in some automation. For example, maybe you did some, panning moves or panning effects. It's best to remove them when you export the files. Make a note, send these notes to the mixing engineer and also provide them with a rough mix. This is going to be in a point that I'll mention later. Number 11, zero the faders before bouncing or exporting the tracks. Now, this one isn't that big of a deal anymore nowadays. Most DAWs are now running on 32-bit and some even 64-bit floating point position. So, exporting the files at a very, very low, with your faders down low at a low level isn't going to lose you any resolution, or any audio quality nowadays. Number 12, include a rough mix and reference tracks, if any. Having a rough mix is going to be perhaps one of the most useful tools to communicate with the mixing engineer what your intention, is in the production. It'll be able to tell what your balances are, what are the sort of effects that you might be going for. Are there any specific, effects that you are going to be putting in, maybe a certain reverb or a delay throw here and there. A reference track is also going to be useful. Maybe you have, you are going for a certain vibe or a certain tonality or a certain sound of one of your favorite records. Putting it there will help your engineer to work towards that goal. Number 13, last but not least, include the following information. A, the song title. B, song tempo in BPM, time signature, and the key as well. And C, your project bit depth and sampling rate. Some of these may seem rather mundane, but sometimes I've gotten projects where, I don't even have the title of the song. When I'm mixing and I have a lot of projects inside my file folders, if it does not have a proper working title at least, it can very easily get misplaced or confused. It's always best to have a very, very specific name. It may not be the final title, you may not have come up with a title yet, but at least a working title for the song is going to be very, very useful. So there we have it, a list of guidelines that I hope will be beneficial to you and your mixing engineer the next time you collaborate on a project. Hopefully you found this useful and informative. If you did, please do leave a like. If you have questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Do share this video, and if you're not yet a subscriber, remember, click on the subscribe button and the notification bell. Do consider becoming a patron, and I hope to see you in another video real soon. Stay safe, stay happy and healthy. Happy recording and mixing. Peace, love, and music.